Hi, everyone. Welcome in to the Unash and Dukes podcast for this Friday, as we are presented by Emel's Hideaway at First Avenue Southeast in Cedar Rapids. They're right across from the Lindale Mall next to the Home Depot, open at 4 o'clock Monday through Saturday. Classic local American restaurant. They've got catering, great sandwiches, chicken, pasta dishes, pizza, burgers. They've got everything, including a fully stocked bar. Stop on by, say hi, thank them for being the presenting sponsor of the Unash and Dukes podcast. And they are the presenter. Also, couldn't do it without great sponsors like Bib Ritter Sportswear in downtown Cedar Rapids, Hunt Graphic Innovations, and Todd Hunt. Dr. John Woolner at Epiphany Dermatology on Council Street Northeast here in Cedar Rapids, and Kurt Gustafson Agency of American Family Insurance on Johnson Avenue Northwest, right across from the Johnson Avenue Hy-Vee. Scott and Mark with you. Mark, you took me down memory lane with your post on X about the front page of the Cedar Rapids Gazette from 1987. The last time the Iowa men's basketball team won an Elite Eight game. The Kingdome in Seattle against Oklahoma, and a game that I think had 11 future NBA players at one time or another. Two really good rosters. It was a different time in the world of college basketball. You didn't have guys that were one and dones back then. You had guys that stayed for, gosh, 4, sometimes 5 years in a program. What a novel concept. But you were there in Seattle the last time this happened. And now, these 39 years later, more than a generation has passed. And Iowa will get ready to play another Elite Eight game coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot has changed. I was 30 years old then, and kind of a young pup. Well, actually, I was sports editor then, but it was a great time. Very fortunate to be covering Iowa athletics at the time because, football 2 years prior, we had that Iowa Michigan game. The football team was ranked number one. Wrestling team was going good. Actually, the women's basketball team had some good years in there as well. It was just a great time to be covering Iowa sports because of the success that the program was having. And certainly the 87 team with Tom Davis, his first year as head coach, went from Tucson to Seattle for that um, Sweet 16. Actually, Iowa had to battle like hell to get out of Tucson because Texas El Paso and you gave him Tim Hardaway gave him a great game, and Iowa won it by 2 points. But and then it got to Seattle, and I had to look back because I don't remember everything about that. I know I went from Tucson back home for a day or two, and then to Seattle, and then that game against Oklahoma was a 9 o'clock game on a Friday night,
Yep.
and you were a student at Iowa then. I can't imagine where you were at 9 o'clock on a Friday night in Iowa City, but we'll get to that. Um, Actually, the Iowa Oklahoma game was a classic as well. And I don't know if you remember, that was the first year of the 3-point goal in college basketball. And that was a good thing for Iowa because Kevin Gamble hit the winner in overtime from 3-point range, but it also ended up hurting Iowa in the Elite Eight game against UNLV because UNLV hit 11 and 12 3-pointers and Iowa only had a couple. But that was just a side note to that game. But it was just um, a terrific team to cover. Iowa had 7 guys that played in the NBA, varying degrees of success, I should say, and 3 or 4 more that played in the CBA or internationally. I mean, that roster in '87 was so much different than the Iowa roster today that's going to be playing for a Final Four berth Saturday night.
3 guys on that roster were drafted that year in the NBA draft. And you and I both seen some very good Iowa and Iowa State teams. We'll get Cyclones coming up in a little bit here. So they get ready to take on Tennessee on Friday night. thinking that a quarter of the field for the Elite Eight could be from the state of Iowa. How about that? That would be amazing. But you look at that team. I mean, just look at the coaching staff. I mean, Tom Davis, his first year, as you mentioned, Bruce Pearl, Gary Close, and Rudy Washington were the assistants. I mean, that's basketball royalty right there. Gary Close was terrific. We know what Bruce Pearl has done. Rudy Washington was kind of George Ravling's right hand man for so many years. Just a tremendous evaluator of talent. This was a roster that was put together in 1987 by George Ravling, and you remember the great quote he had when they were freshmen. He goes, "Just wait till they can shave," and he was right. He wasn't around to reap the rewards of this, but I mean, you look at it. Gary Wright, who came from USC. Little background on that story, but we won't get to it today. Of course, B.J. Armstrong, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, point guards in Iowa history. He's right up there with Ronnie Lester and Andre Woolridge. Roy Marble from Flint, Michigan. Ed Horton from Springfield Lamphere High School. Kevin Gamble, who came in also from Springfield. Brad Lohaus, redshirt senior that year. And then guys that were kind of, I don't want to say role players or anything like that, but, Michael Reeves and Bill Jones. Jeff Moe was an integral part of that team. Michael Morgan, who I still remember also George Ravling saying that, predicting he was going to be the all-time leading scorer in Iowa history before he left. He fell a little short, but Michael Morgan was a tremendous athlete from Louisiana. And then, of course, locally, Al Lorenzen, the McDonald's All-American from Kennedy on that team. But that's probably, in my opinion, Mark, the greatest collection of talent that Iowa has ever had on a basketball roster.
Yeah, that roster, I don't think you mentioned Les Jepson, who didn't play hardly at all that year. He ended up getting drafted in the NBA before he was done. That roster included eight guys who were eventually taken in the NBA draft. And you mentioned Lorenzen. I actually exchanged texts with Al today. Strangely enough, he's in a vehicle headed for Houston with his two boys. I wonder what he's going to do in Houston. He's probably going to go to and there was a lot of celebrity sightings last night in Houston. Austin Ash, Jordan Bohannon, Nicholas Bear, seen in the stands. This brings out a lot of, Matt Rule was there for Nebraska last night.
Gene?
Through all this, though, you're avoiding the question, what were you doing at 9 o'clock on a Friday night?
Watching the
game. Where did you watch the Oklahoma game?
It was in Iowa City. I cannot remember exactly where, but I guarantee you it wasn't in the dorm room.
You saying you don't remember leaving?
I remember the game. I think it was at the field house, to be honest with you. The old field house in Iowa City. The OG, the original. I remember that. I remember more vividly the Sunday afternoon game in Seattle. I was at my girlfriend's, now wife's, dorm in Ames, Iowa, at Iowa State, watching Iowa lose an 18-point lead with the advent of something that probably ultimately would take Dr. Tom, one of the factors going into Dr. Tom's not being his contract not being renewed by Bob Bowlesby, and that was the point drop zone. The old 1-2-2 that flattened out to a 3-2, and man alive, UNLV hit shot after shot after shot in the Kingdome from the top of the key, and came back and won that game. But I digress.
I want to know more.
Friday was a blur.
That UNLV game was a mid-afternoon game, I think, Central Time, something like that. Yeah.
It was, and that was a good Vegas team too. But man, Iowa people, there were no cell phones back then, but the buzz, created, even in Ames, was that, I mean, holy cow. I mean, this is going to happen. And poof, just like in the Sweet 16 game against Nebraska. I'm sure Nebraska's thinking great thoughts when they were up double digits early. Oh, this is going to happen. We got a chance to go to the Final Four. And poof, it goes away that quickly.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories of that trip to Seattle covering the Iowa game and at halftime of that UNLV game with Iowa up 16 points. George Wine, the sports information director at Iowa, was passing out information and flights and credentials and whatnot for the Final Four. That's an old story, but it's still a vivid memory that I have. That maybe if Iowa was down 16, he would have done the same thing. I doubt it. But God bless George Wine. I loved him, but at halftime, yeah, everybody thought that Iowa was headed for the Final Four, and I did. Turns out, after I filed my story, I caught my one and only red eye back to Cedar Rapids from Seattle, and I never want to do one of those again. But I could have waited till the next morning, but caught a red eye that night out of Seattle and back to Cedar Rapids. Uh, but it was that UNLV game, and I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves one game a little bit. But you talk about that roster. It was you can talk about the Ronnie Lester roster. It wasn't nearly as talented as the one in 1986, 87. And this one in 2026 is a far cry from it too. But uh, the similarities are that Tom Davis is in his first year, Ben McCollum's in his first year. Each team reaches the Elite Eight, but that's where the comparisons stop, I think, between the two teams. The thing is, both the '87 team had an opportunity, and this one does have an opportunity to go to the Final Four.
One game away, 40 minutes away. We'll get to that coming up here, but a quick, well, not maybe necessarily a quick look back, but Iowa beats Nebraska in the Sweet 16 game, 77-71, coming from double digits down. And tell you what, maybe Nebraska, it was a Nebraska tempo. It was a Nebraska game in the first 20 minutes. Then it turned into a Ben McCollum game in the last 20 minutes in that one. It doesn't hurt you when you're making a lot of threes. And Price Sanford and Frager and others were cannon threes for Nebraska. Iowa looked a step slow as far as the defense was concerned. And I thought Fred Hoiberg came up with a terrific game plan to start that. And these two teams know each other, as you know, Mark, so very, very well. It's just going to be little tweaks. And Nebraska ran a couple little tweaks. They, instead of having the screen, I mean, coming off a screen, going backdoor, Rink did that a couple times. And good for Fred Hoiberg to do that. And Nebraska got open threes off of that and took a very early lead. Iowa kept chipping away and chipping away. And maybe, at least I thought, perhaps the most important basket of the ball game was the three just ahead of halftime that Iowa hit. Because that got the momentum going, got it down to 3 points, and got it down to one possession game by Tate Sage, who was absolutely brilliant in that game on Thursday night.
Yeah, Sage had the game of his life, at least up till now. And Iowa needed every bit of that. But, that first half, Nebraska played and shot so awfully well. I thought Iowa was fortunate to be within three. They would have been fortunate to be within six, even if Sage had missed that shot. But the fact is, Iowa shot it well too and continued to shoot it well. And I think I wouldn't say Nebraska got gassed, but I think, the edge wore off a little bit as Iowa continued to stay within reach, and then finally take the lead with a little more than 2 minutes left. And those shots ended up not going down for Nebraska, those ones that did go down in the first half. And Nebraska had only 25 points in the second half. A lot of that has to do with Iowa's defense, and some of it has to do with, Nebraska's mainly shot from 3-point range. They forgot Rink Mast was there, who could post. He had a matchup advantage, and they stopped going to him underneath. So, but such a resilient Iowa team, not only this game, but through this tournament, being down several times. I mean, think back a month ago, Scott. The Penn State game seems a long time ago when Iowa just didn't look very good at all, hardly a tournament team in that loss at Penn State. Uh, but a month later, this team is just plays together and doesn't quit and seems to come up with a person, a player, each and every game. Tavian Banks was great against Florida. He only played, 14 minutes last night. But Sage and Fulgaris, I've said many times, it doesn't matter who starts, who finishes. Fulgaris and Sage played 29 minutes apiece. And they were so very, very good. And you look at this tournament run right now, and I think there's three players that have been the most consistent, and that's Fulgaris, Koch, and Sturts. Even though Sturts has had an up and down offensive time, that guy has played every minute of three games. I mean, we know what in the Illinois game, he had to sit out a lot because of foul trouble. The game in Iowa City that Illinois ended up winning by six. But think about it, he was guarding Sanford a lot of the time. Just, what Sturts does is incredible to me. I mean, go ahead and score 20 points and get some assists, but also try to guard one of the team's best players, and be on the floor for 40 minutes, handle the ball. He's a special player in that regard.
Yeah, he is. And to me, anyway, Iowa's defense got the intensity really picked up in the second half.
Yeah.
Uh, well, it's not according to Iowa players. You can see it in some of the camera shots and video shots, but Ben McCollum got after him on a couple timeouts, one especially where clipboard took a beating, a pen took a beating. Um, sometimes you need to do that to motivate the troops, and that's what Iowa did. And yes, I thought Sturts defensively got a lot better in the second half. Sage was tremendous, and as Iowa got closer and closer, to me it looked like Nebraska. It looked like not their intensity so much, but it just looked like they started to not panic, but just you know, oh my gosh, greatest season ever
Mhm.
in Nebraska history. And here they come. We've seen this in other sports before. Here comes Iowa coming from behind against Nebraska. And, Sturts hits the three to give the lead, and Nebraska didn't look like the same team after that. Shots were short, weren't getting good shots. We know what happened at the end with four players on the floor. That was a boneheaded move by Fred Hoiberg and his staff, more of his staff, I think, than Fred, because they were trying to make a offense for defensive substitution, and yeah, it just kind of snowballed after that for the Huskers. And to Iowa's credit, hey, what do they say? Coffee is for closers, right? Iowa's been a closer so far.
Yeah, it really has. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say I have enormous respect for Fred Hoiberg, not only for his coaching ability, but taking ownership of that gaff late in the game. He quickly owned up to it, said it was his fault. Whether it was his or not, I don't know. Maybe it was an assistant's responsibility, and that assistant screwed up. But uh, Fred Hoiberg, nothing but praise for Iowa, and I just have enormous respect for him. But I think you're right about, after that Sturts three went down, uh, Nebraska didn't seem to be the same. And I think, having four players on the floor was part of that. They were a little little confused in the head about things. As you said, a tremendous season going down the drain. God, we had this team. We had them up by 10 or so points several times. And now look at us. Less than 2 minutes left. We might lose this game. Oh my, you know, that's when it takes poise. And ended up Iowa was the team that had poise.
Yeah, they were. Iowa wins at 77-71. I'll ask you this, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about it before the game and after the game. Um, did this mean more to both teams and hurt even more? And I think it did. The fact that it was a rivalry. I mean, I don't think there's a doubt in the world now. Nebraska and Iowa are the two biggest rivals for each other. You could make a claim for Iowa, Minnesota. I think there's always that, especially in football. I don't think in basketball it's quite the same. Um, Iowa, Nebraska is the pinnacle for these two schools, and I that played a huge part in this. I think as well. Iowa fans did not want to lose to Nebraska. Nebraska fans are taking it very hard that they lost to Iowa again. Um, I'm not going to say it meant more than getting to the Elite Eight, but I don't think I don't know if there would have been as much vitriol, Mark, if this was Iowa, SMU, or Nebraska, Clemson, or something like that. This was two Big Ten teams that don't like each other going at it.
Yeah, I think from the fan bases, it's even exponentially higher. From the Iowa fan base, it's a great rivalry because you've dominated Nebraska in damn near everything except wrestling lately.
And volleyball.
Nebraska's got an edge on Iowa in wrestling the last couple 3 years. Football, men's basketball, women's basketball, right on down the line. Um, I don't know about baseball or whatever, but in the major sports, Iowa has owned Nebraska, and therefore the Iowa fans think it's a great rivalry. For the players, I think they come from different backgrounds, different places. Uh, Alvaro Falgueras doesn't know hardly anything about the Iowa Nebraska rivalry before he got here. You know, whereas an Iowa fan who's long of tooth like you and I know a whole lot more history that goes into it. So, and Ben McCollum said the same thing, and I think a little bit of it was coach speak that we're just preparing for the next opponent, and I'm from Iowa. I know the history of Iowa, Nebraska, and whatnot, but I think it's a lot bigger for the fans than it is for players sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Unash and Dukes podcast presented by Eagles Hideaway, First Avenue Southeast in Cedar Rapids. And thanks to everybody over there, Jamie and Chris and the entire crew. They do such a bang up job. Open at 4 o'clock Monday through Saturday. And well, that's all the good news. Now, standing between Iowa and Indianapolis, and interestingly enough, on the way from Iowa City to Indianapolis, Shambana, the Illinois Fighting Illini, and had a little bit of a hiccup at the end of the year with some injuries. Boswell missed some time, but when healthy, and I think they showed in that game against Houston, in Houston last night, that this is a team that can win it all. Uh, Arizona looked great. We'll see what Duke does against St. John's tonight. See what Michigan does. See what Iowa State does. Um, we've known all year, Mark. Big teams have been Iowa's Achilles, and it was a 6 point game in Iowa City. It was, usually between 8 and 13, 14 for most of that game. Uh, this is a talented Illinois team. They are big. They're athletic. They can shoot it from the perimeter. They can go inside and post you up. As good as Iowa was throughout the tournament, they're going to have to be exponentially better to get to the Final Four.
Raise your hand if you had Illinois going to the Final Four in your bracket. Attaboy. Little shout out for Scott Unash. I know the Iowa fans hope you're wrong, but that was a great call. It really was. I don't know how far you had Iowa going, but I don't think you had Iowa, Illinois
I did
in
not.
the Elite Eight. But this Illinois team is quite capable. It's got a mix of international players and guys like Boswell, who's from Illinois, and Keaton Wagler, a terrific freshman. It's just a very well long, talented team that can beat you in so many ways. And they played once in the regular season. Iowa, I think you were there in Iowa City. Illinois led by 17 with 11 minutes left. And Iowa made that score look a whole lot better than what it was. And Iowa, I think Iowa was battling some illness at that time. But nevertheless, uh, this is a kind of a matchup problem. But you know what? So is the Iowa Florida game. And we know how that turned out. Iowa needed the last second shot to win it. Iowa's going to have to play every bit as well as they have been to be in the game against Illinois. I think. I think the Illini favored by about 7 right now.
Yeah, and it's Iowa's going to have to shoot it well. And Maniau, Banks, Fulgaris are going to have to really, really defend. And they're going to have to go. You're probably going to see Yak a little bit, I think, in this game. Did in the Florida game. And he's just a better matchup. Um, it's going to take probably a 55% shooting night for Iowa and at least 9 or 10 3-pointers. And you're going to have to hope your defense causes Illinois to have an off shooting day. And you cannot fall behind Illinois by 12 to 14 points early, or you're just not going to get it done.
That's what happened in that regular season matchup, and you know this is why they play the game. Illinois is going to be favored. You would think Illinois is headed for the Final Four, but you didn't think Iowa was going to be in this position a few short weeks ago. But here it is. And if I'm Iowa, you know, playing with house money, you're the underdog. Illinois has got the pressure. Illinois is supposed to win. All the pressure should be on Illinois. Iowa, if it's possible, play free and play free and lose, play good defense, and see what happens.
Sunday or Saturday, I beg your pardon. The early game, five just past 5 o'clock for Iowa and Illinois from Houston. Before that, Iowa State gets a chance to punch their ticket to the Elite Eight as they take on Rocky Top and the Tennessee Volunteers in a 2-6 battle coming up. That game to be played in Chicago, where allegedly there's a lot of Cardinal and gold that will be in the stands for that one. Biggest question is, are we going to see Josh Jefferson in the lineup tonight for Iowa State? What's your guess?
I think he's going to be limited at best. I mean, I got such a kick out of seeing these videos and these photos at Iowa State shoot around. Oh, Josh Jefferson's on the court. Oh, this is a great sign. Photo in the locker room, him putting on one of his sneakers. He didn't do anything to suggest that he can run the floor for 35 minutes, let alone 5 minutes. He was standing flat footed, shooting 5 foot jumpers and, you know, doing torso flat footed. Nothing suggested to me that he's going to be in that great a shape. I hope he is, for his sake personally and for Iowa State's. Iowa State's played very well without him up till now. Whether that can continue remains to be seen, but I have my doubts about Jefferson, and I know some of you are going to be listening to this after we've recorded it, and we'll know exactly what happens later on tonight and into Saturday morning. But from what I've seen up till now in the shoot arounds, yeah, he's put on practice gear. Yeah, he's put on sneakers. He's out of a boot. But how much he's done, it doesn't look like he's done much, really.
Game time decision, according to TJ Otzelberger, for Joshua Jefferson in this game. Personally, I think he plays. I think he's going to make a go of it tonight. How effective he's going to be is the question. Like you said, there's a big difference. Hey, Tiger looks good on the range, right? That may be a bad example today with the Tiger news that came out
Not
earlier.
behind the wheel.
Not behind the wheel. Get a driver, dude.
Mhm.
But um, we go through this with the Masters. We're going to go through it if he's in Augusta and playing in a couple of weeks. Oh, Tiger looks great. Josh Jefferson looked great out there. Um, I think he's going to make a go of it. I don't know how effective he's going to be because to me, this is going to be an up tempo game. Um, Jacoby Gillespie is really Lipsy versus Gillespie tonight is what you should watch. Lipsy coming off 26, a career high in the second round was terrific,
Yeah.
and he flummoxed Kentucky. Can Iowa State's defense flummox Tennessee out on the perimeter and turn them into a jump shooting team? They're not a bad jump shooting team, but they want to attack the basket. That's what Tennessee likes to do. And Gillespie likes to, he's the man that stirs the drink. And I don't know, it's a really intriguing matchup in this game. And then you got, could be the first to 90 tonight before that with Michigan and Alabama. So, two good games in that region.
Yeah, I think the games tonight are terrific. I mean, Duke St. John's, Michigan State, Connecticut. I mean, and you mentioned Michigan, Bama, but even if Jefferson tries to go, you've had ankle injuries. I've had ankle injuries. I've had other injuries. When you get right back at it, uh, it's in your head. Am I going to turn my ankle again? Should I really cut that hard and whatnot? There's a tentative nature to that when you've been injured about doing things that you normally can do. So um, my heart says I hope he can go. He can go 20, 25 minutes. My head says I really have questions about it. So we'll see what happens.
Winner goes to the Elite Eight. Um, Tomorrow is set. It'll be Iowa, Illinois on Saturday at 5, just past 5 o'clock. After that, 1 versus 2 with Arizona and Purdue. Purdue had to sweat it out literally last night to the very last second. Kaufman ran with a tip in off a miss to beat Texas.
Hook and hold. Look at the video. Hook
Oh,
and hold over his back. Yeah.
listen, the deeper we go in the tournament, the less it's called, Mark. Arizona looked damn good last night, though.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, they look good.
That's my pick to win it, and I haven't changed that pick. The Big Ten is going to be well represented, even if Michigan and Michigan State lose. But to have five teams in the final, uh, that would be something else.
You got four honeys tonight. Duke, St. John's, Alabama, Michigan, Michigan State, UConn, Iowa State, Tennessee. I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
No, it doesn't.
A little better than 14-2 White Sox games.
Well, a little better than Iowa baseball facing number one UCLA this afternoon. So, um, yeah, baseball we're going to get at next week, and I think we intended to talk a little bit about baseball today, but my goodness, with the what happened last night, and the perspective of everything, and um, how did you and Christy celebrate or commiserate after that UNLV game?
um,
Oh, that's too personal. I'm sorry. I
I
mean,
I
I'll
was
ask I'll ask Christy
I
about it.
was not a happy man.
No.
The 18-point lead dwindling away with Greg Anthony and the rest of those guys. I think it was Larry Johnson was he on that team too? Or was that
No, it was
later?
Armin Gilliam and
Garmin Gilliam, yeah.
Gerald Patio and Jarvis Basnight,
That was a good
Mark Wade,
team.
Mark Wade. Yeah, those are the guys I remember anyway.
And that was kind of the beginning of the UNLV run that Jerry Tarkanian had with the Running Rebels back then. And
They didn't win it though. Indiana ended up winning it,
that
and
is correct.
uh, that
Some guy
was
named Alford.
I think Indiana won the league that year, and Iowa finished third, something
Iowa
like that.
finished third. Yep,
Yeah.
30-5, I think Iowa was.
Hmm.
And I think every one of the losses was non-conference. If I'd have to go back and double check that, but yeah, some guy named Keith Smart hit a shot in 1987 to win it for Indiana. And then where was the next stop for Keith Smart?
Cedar Rapids Silver Bullets.
The Cedar Rapids Silver Bullets. He was the draw. Uh, didn't
Yes,
work
he
too
was.
well.
Oh, Jeff Moe played on that team. Al Lorenzen played on that team, but it was Keith Smart who was a real star.
Yeah, with the Cedar Rapids Silver Bullets back in the day. Uh, man, we brought everything up in this particular podcast.
We
Anything else
did.
from 1987 you want to talk about?
Well, no, I'm happy that you graduated from Iowa a year later and with a broadcast journalism degree in hand, and it was about a year later, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was December of '88, four and a
Yeah,
half years.
yeah.
And and by the way, I mean not knew him, but knew him well enough to because we had so many classes together. BJ Armstrong was also a communications major back then that, I could give one of those to him in passing or at class, and you give him one back. That
You ever see Ed Horton in class?
Ed wasn't yeah. Ed wasn't a communications major. I'm not sure what Ed did. Um, I wasn't going to ask Ed. Oh, we
No.
could have a podcast of Ed Horton stories from 1987. We could.
Yeah, with the wrestling team special guests.
Yeah. I don't think that'd be a great idea either.
No. You know, last point on that, I was just reading those guys in that 87 were very successful. I mean, you talk about Lorenzen, he was the CEO and he runs a equine business and over in central Iowa. And so many of those guys, Gary Wright was highly successful. Some of them were coaches and, um, you know, they did very well after, their NBA career. Most of them did very well after their NBA professional career. Their playing career was over.
They did. And it was a fun group to watch.
Yeah.
That was for sure. So much fun. It was 15-5 every night, no matter if they were playing, backwards Northwestern New Mexico State at Carver Hawkeye Arena on a November night. But every game was at 7 o'clock, Mark.
Right.
And it was usually a Thursday and a Saturday in the Big Ten.
Yeah, the good old days, right?
Good old days. Nick Cronin would like to bring those back.
Not going to happen, but yeah, not.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens on Monday. Could be talking about Iowa State going to the Final Four on Monday. Could be talking about Iowa going to the Final Four. Could be talking about two excruciating losses. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's going to be a fun weekend of basketball as we get the Final Four set and get closer to the Masters. We will talk baseball at some point next week. We'll have our baseball predictions. Mark and I are already fighting it out to see which of our teams is going to finish in the cellar of the American League Central. One game does not make the season, though, especially if you hit a leadoff home run with your first batter of the year. It does not mean it's going to go well. I thought of the late great Bob Uecker, when Mydroth hit a home run to lead off the year, because he said in Major League, you can always tell how the season's going to go by the very first batter.
No, as you know, Scott, it's like birding the first hole and shooting 89. So, I mean, I'm afraid that's where it's headed for our two teams. But um, Cal Eldred, the former Major League pitcher, is going to join us at some point on the podcast. Cal and I have talked, and condolences going out to him and his family on the loss of his father. Uh, Good guy. I met him a couple times, and he was as you would expect, a proud dad and proud grandpa. And so our thoughts go out to Cal and his family.
Yeah, very much echo those sentiments, and we will have Cal on when he's ready to go, and we'll talk some baseball with
Yep.
him and talk some golf as well. Brian Haas going to be joining us from down at Lake House Sports, and looking forward to that also coming up in the next few weeks as we kind of transition from the winter to the spring, like the weather. Big thanks to
Well,
Evil's Hideaway.
we found out in this business though that we just when we think it's off season, a bunch of stuff happens that's worth talking about. So we're gonna play it by ear, I think.
Yes, we are. Big thanks to Evil's Hideaway, First Avenue Southeast, our presenting sponsor. Thank them. Stop on by. They're open at 4 o'clock Monday through Saturday, right across from Lindale. Thanks as well to Dr. John Woolner, Doc at Epiphany Dermatology on Council Street Northeast in Cedar Rapids, as well as Kurt Gustafson Agency of American Family Insurance, right across from the Johnson Avenue Hy-Vee on Johnson Avenue Northwest. Gary at Bim Ritter Sportswear downtown at 817 2nd Avenue Southeast, online at bimritter.com. And your one-stop store for screen print and embroidery on whatever you want to put it on. And Hunt Graphic Innovations as well. They take care of the crmlivesports.com website, and they can do that for you as well. Have a great weekend, Mark, and
You
see
got
what
it. Have a good
happens.
one. You got it. We'll talk to you Monday.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Unash and Dukes podcast, and we will talk to you next time.